Part 6. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 52. The three people who arrived on the fifth floor of the library dispersed. Sutingyu walked through rows of bookshelves, occasionally stopping and then walking away. When Sutingyu saw a copy of The Legend of the Thousand-Year Flower God in Beiwa City, he stopped and reached out to pull out the book. Turn the pages. Sutingyu looked at some main contents and integrated the information together. Beiwa City is a city with a 1,000-year history and cultural heritage. Looking at the marks left by history, the shadow of Beiwa is indispensable. Beiwa City has a special climate. No matter what flowering period the flowers are in, as long as they are planted in Beiwa City, they will bloom within 3 months. They will not wither easily after blooming and can remain in full bloom for up to 3 years. The flowers are fragrant. Legend has it that Beiwa City was favored by the god of flowers, who blessed the city with spring all year round and gave him the king of flowers to manage the blooming of flowers in the world. Wherever there is a king of flowers, the flowers grow very healthy, and the residents of Beiwa City, worshipping the king of flowers and believing in the god of flowers for generations. The king of flowers manages the flowers. Now all the flowers are almost withered, and the king of flowers has almost become the commander-in-chief. Sutingyu put the book back and continued to look for other books. I searched for several books in a row. Some said that cow is actually the incarnation of the god of flowers, some said that cow was a beauty who loved flowers in ancient times. After her death, she transformed into cow in a sea of flowers and continued to protect flowers. Some said that cow became a spirit through cultivation. Can take shape, has human wisdom. 2 hours later, the three gathered together to share the information they had found. I discovered something very strange. The fat man spoke first, his face a little pale, probably because he was too cold from the library's air conditioner. The number of households that can support cow in Beiwa City was 50,500 years ago. It dropped to 35,300 years ago. It dropped to less than 10,100 years ago. And the latest statistics, 20 years ago, there were only 1,852 households left. Another discovery is that in all the families that support cow, no one in the family has ever been over 50 years old. In ancient times, the average lifespan of human beings was 40 or 50 years old, which was not outstanding. But in modern times with advanced medical technology, the average lifespan of human beings can be 80 or 90 years old, but Beiwa City still remains around 40 or 50 years old. The fat man trembled and expressed his guess, is there really something wrong with this cow? Sutingyu also revealed the information he found. Only Qin-Chi was left, and he spoke slowly. I found out that cow's place of growth is in the mountains around Beiwa City. Generally, outsiders are not allowed to enter. Even locals must have a certificate issued by the city government before they can enter. Then what should we do now? The fat man looked at Sutingyu from the left and Qin-Chi from the right, waiting for the two of them to make up their minds. Qin-Chi glanced at the fat man, put away cows beforehand. Do you have any warm clothes prepared? Not yet, I originally planned to buy it today. The fat man scratched his head. Fat man, you should buy warm clothes for the two of you online as soon as possible. The clothing store in Beiwa City does not stock winter clothes. Qin-Chi didn't mention herself, obviously she had prepared it in advance. Okay, the fat man nodded repeatedly. The three people left the library and passed the flower trade center on the way, and found many police cars parked nearby. What happened? The fat man sitting in the back of the car stuck his head out of the car window with doubtful eyes. Go down and take a look. Sutingyu, the co-pilot, turned to Qin-Chi and said. Qin-Chi found a place to park. After the three of them got off the car, they walked into the flower trade center. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 53. The front of a large flower shop was crowded with people, and police officers were walking around to maintain order at the scene. Sutingyu tried her best to stand on tiptoes, but couldn't see anything. She seemed to hear someone quarreling inside. "Boss, I'll go in and find out the news," the fat man volunteered and dove into the crowd of onlookers. His chubby body shuttled back and forth among the crowd with unusual agility. In less than 5 minutes, the fat man squeezed out smoothly, "Someone bought a cart of flowers in this store, but they all withered within a few days." The buyer asked for a return and compensation, but the flower shop refused, and they kept arguing. During the fight, buyers also criticized Beiwa Market's flower brand for its false reputation. I also asked people. There are more and more returns from florists these days. This is just one of them. After listening to the fat man's words, Qin-Chi turned around and said, "Let's go and collect some supplies." Sutingyu waved to Fatty, "Let's go, Fatty." Oh. The three of them bought a lot of fresh meat and vegetables to cook for the fat man. On the way back, the high temperature and scorching sun scorched the entire road, as if it was placed on an oven. It was rare to see tourists going out to have fun. The leaves of the green trees on both sides of the road turned yellow, and the flowers were blooming. The Beiwa market seems to have lost its colorfulness, joy, and laughter overnight. Back at the villa, express delivery was piled on the ground at the door. "Brother Qin, what did you buy?" The fat man vigorously lifted a large express box and broke out in a sweat after going back and forth. "Generator, electric blanket, oven, air conditioner." Qin-Chi pointed at a few items casually. "What are you buying these for?" The fat man scratched his head. Sutingyu carried a express box that was heavier than her and moved into the villa easily. "Of course it is to prevent natural disasters." "That's right. We need to go online quickly and buy all the insulation supplies." The fat man took out his mobile phone. "Look for one with a quick delivery time, preferably within 2 days. If it doesn't work, just pay more." After moving all the express delivery, Qin-Chi unpacked the express delivery in the lobby on the first floor, and did not forget to remind him. Okay, Fatty didn't care about the money, he mainly looked at whether it could keep warm, so he bought all the equipment for himself and Sutingyu from head to toe. After disassembling the express delivery, you still need to install it before you can use it. After the fat man placed the order, he also came to help. "I know this job well, Brother Qin, let me help you." Sutingyu didn't know how to install air conditioners, so he just stood aside and watched the two of them working, handing over tools from time to time. The villa is very large and it is impossible to take into account all the places. The three people discussed and put most of them in the basement, where most of the supplies are stored, and it is enough to accommodate 3 people. The remaining ones are installed in the living room on the first floor and the room for 3 people. There are 2 generators, one on the first floor and one in the basement. After everything was done, most of the day passed. The fat man put on an apron and went to the kitchen to make dinner. Sutingyu lay on the sofa with a few bags of snacks and watched TV, while Qin-Chi went to count the supplies. The latest weather forecast for Beiwa City is very hot, with the outdoor temperature reaching 39 degrees Celsius, the highest temperature in Beiwa City's history. The flower industry and tourism industry are facing an unprecedented bleak period. Small and medium-sized flower shops are facing bankruptcy and reselling their stores. The supply chain of the large flower industry is damaged and assets have shrunk. A large number of tourists left Beiwa City, the tourism industry suffered a Waterloo, and the tourist season ceased to exist. Sutingyu gnawed the potato chips and picked up the air conditioner nearby. 18 degrees C. He poked it with his finger and lowered it 2 degrees. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 54. During dinner, the fat man specially brought cow and placed it in the middle of the dining table. The dining table is oval, and 3 people sit at one end to eat. The food is also placed on this side. Even if a pot of flowers is placed in the middle of the table, it cannot block the view of the dishes. Sutingyu's cheeks were bulging after eating. When she saw Fatty bringing cow, she asked curiously, "Fatty, aren't you afraid that this flower will suck your lifespan? Do you dare to bring it here now?" The fat man explained with a smile, "Fat man, I'm only 28 years old. It's my prime years. I can just smoke this flower. As long as a copy is released, there will be no impact." "Oh, I can't tell, fat man, are you so young?" Sutingyu blinked his big eyes, very surprised. The fat man modestly said, "I can't help it, I've become more mature." Qin-Chi finished the third bowl of rice in silence and just stood up to serve it. The sharp-eyed fat man jumped up, took Qin-Chi's rice bowl and said with a smile, "I'll serve it. Brother Qin, just sit down." Sutingyu quickly finished the meal, raised his empty rice bowl with one hand, and licked his tender lips. "Fat man, I want it too." "No problem." The fat man took it, turned around and went to the kitchen to fill the meal. Sutingyu held her chin with both hands and stared at Cow on the table with her big eyes unblinking. "Qin-Chi, why do I feel that Cow seems to have no energy? Do you want to sprinkle some water on him?" "Anything is fine." Qin-Chi lowered his head and played with his phone. "Qin-Chi, could this cow be the same as the stone tablet in Liming Mountain, or maybe some kind of hidden prop?" Sutingyu's eyes lit up, and she wanted to put Cow in her inventory. Qin-Chi paused and glanced up. "Before I met you, I never knew that there were hidden props in the dungeon. At most, they were mission props, and basically you couldn't bring them out of the dungeon." "Ah," Sutingyu tilted his head, "it must be that none of you have tried it before. You will know after you try it." Qin-Chi was silent for a moment. Then, "You try it?" "The girl in front of me seemed a little different, so it would be okay to try." "Then let me start." Sutingyu was gearing up, with excitement on his face. He grabbed the flower pot with both hands and began to use his mind to try to put Cow into the inventory. "Receive. Collected from me." A panel suddenly popped up in front of Sutingyu's eyes, on which he was typing frantically. "Warn. Player number 444,444 Angel Su, please stop your inappropriate behavior. Database analysis is messed up. This item has biological consciousness, not a game prop, cannot be included in inventory. Be careful," Qin-Chi's voice sounded. A thick brown rattan arm penetrated through the translucent panel and whipped towards Sutingyu with strong malice. "Meow meow meow." Sutingyu rolled around in shock and jumped off the chair. Bang! The brand new chair was broken up by the cane and turned into a pile of scrap wood. Sutingyu took a closer look. Cow, who was still wilting and weak on the table, seemed to have been given steroids. In an instant, his size suddenly increased several times. The roots rooted in the flower pot broke through the flower pot and continued to become thicker and longer, baring his teeth and claws in mid-air. The white flowers on the top swelled and shrank, and a lot of yellow pus flowed out from the gaps between the petals, which was like colloid and sticky. It was disgusting to look at. Before Sutingyu could scream to heighten the atmosphere, the fat man who had just come out of the kitchen shouted out first. "Oh my God! What kind of monster is this?" Sutingyu kindly reminded, "Fat man, this is King of Flowers. He was moved by your summons and has revealed his true form. Come over and let him take a sip." Thump. Sutingyu glanced doubtfully. "Oh." The fat man fainted. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 55. Sutingyu's panel appeared again. Not only Sutingyu, but also Qin-Chi and the unconscious fatty on the other side, their respective panels popped up. Please note. Players Qin-Chi, Angel Su and Wandering North and South trigger a hidden plot Flower God's offering. The system panel that was jumping around like crazy seemed to have calmed down and released tasks in a matter-of-fact manner. Hidden plot, the flower god's offering. Background content: in ancient times, there was a kind of evil flower that used beautiful and fragrant flowers to attract and confuse humans. It secretly sucked people's lifespan and essence. Humans who overextended their lives had their lifespan shortened and died before their 50s still with a smile. Hidden mission: under the attack of the evil flower, persist for 1 hour. Task conditions: the distance between the player and the evil god flower cannot exceed 300 meters, no helpers are allowed, and modern thermal weapons are not allowed. Game props are allowed. Sutingyu looked at a lot of mission conditions and curled her lips. Is this hidden mission so complicated? Qin-Chi was closest to Fatty and dragged him into the kitchen when the hidden mission was triggered. Qin-Chi came out with an ancient bronze sword in his hand. The sword's evil aura spread, and countless small heads formed and roared at the evil god flower. Sutingyu took out his brick and weighed it twice in his hand. A cloud of black smoke seeped out from the surface of the stone tablet, and gradually turned into a 2-meter-tall monster in mid-air. In the kitchen, the fat man slowly woke up and accidentally saw the evil little head, and then saw the evil beast raging. He rolled his eyes and fainted again. In the hall, the imposing evil god flower seemed to have been suppressed a bit after the ancient bronze swords and stone tablets appeared one after another. It smells so good. Master, I want to eat it. De Hui inhaled the fragrance of the flowers, his eyes glowing red. Sutingyu touched his chin. You are the boss of the 2-star dungeon, and it is the hidden boss of the 3-star dungeon. Are you sure it didn't eat you? How is that possible? I must have eaten it. Big Gray bared his teeth and looked dissatisfied. Our fragrance. When the little head on Qin-Chi's side heard what De Hui said, he couldn't help but refute. Whoosh! 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 The evil god who was inexplicably reduced to food is angry. He waved several canes and fired in the direction of Qin-Chi and Sutingyu. Without the owner's instructions, the little head and the big gray moved almost at the same time. The little head turned into evil energy, wrapped around the rattan, and then the small mouths reappeared in the evil energy. Open your mouth. 1 bite? Not to be outdone, De Hui condensed into a solid form and fought with several vines. From time to time, when the vines could not turn a corner, he would bite off a piece, chew a few mouthfuls, and then swallow it. The evil god flower couldn't even touch the corners of Qin-Chi and Sutingyu's clothes. Instead, its own canes were bitten one after another. Time after time. I swallow, I swallow, I swallow. Little Tou and Big Hui compete with each other to see who is the best at cooking. Keep the buds, don't eat them yet. Sutingyu watched helplessly as the vines of the evil god flower were eaten up by the little heads and Big Gray. Then he started to focus on the buds that seemed to be the most delicious, and hurriedly said, "Prevent. Qin-Chi, come back." When Little Head and Big Hui heard their master's words, they could only smash their mouths with regret and turn around to go back. The ground was in a mess, leaving only a bud. There were cracks in the floor and ceiling, and some furniture had been knocked apart. "Can we ask someone to repair this house?" Sutingyu asked. Qin-Chi, "Okay. That's good." Sutingyu returned his gaze to the flower bud and poked it with a chair leg. "Isn't it dead?" Suddenly, the closed bud jumped up from the ground, opened its petals, and the exposed stamens were like fangs and sharp thorns aimed at Sutingyu's head. Boom! Suting quickly swung out the chair leg with fishy eyes and hit the girl right in the heart. The flower bud was hit by the force and hit the ceiling, making a crater, and then got stuck. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Kei. Chapter 56. The fat man woke up again, feeling a little confused. In my memory, Cow seems to have turned into a big monster, coming to suck him. Huh, a cute head poked out. "Fat man, you're awake, come out quickly." Boss, the fat man saw that it was Sutingyu. Somehow, he felt particularly safe. His mind was no longer confused, and he quickly got up from the ground. As soon as he came out of the kitchen, Fatty saw the scene of house demolition that was comparable to that of a tornado. He was a little dumbfounded. How much does it cost to decorate? Fatty also saw Sutingyu squatting in front of a white spherical body, constantly poking it here and there with the chair legs, and slipped over curiously. Boss, what is this? Cow. The fat man's eyes widened and he took several steps back. Hua, cow. Cow with only one bud left. Yes. The fat man looked at Sutingyu, who had a matter-of-fact expression, and then looked at Qin-Chi, who had a calm expression on the other side and was calling the decoration team. The fat man couldn't help but reflect on whether he was making a fuss, so he lowered his head and pinched his belly with his hands. I seem to be hungry again. Then, the fat man returned to his smiling and honest look, raised his head and asked the two of them, Boss, Brother Qin, are you still eating? There is still some food left in the kitchen. I want it. At this time, the three people's panels popped up at the same time. Congratulations to players Qin-Chi, Angel Su and Wandering South and North for completing hidden tasks and meeting the conditions for unlocking the dungeon. After the dungeon ends, you will receive additional rewards. The difficulty of this round of dungeons has been increased to 4 stars, and the game length has been increased to 27 days. All players who successfully pass this round will have their clearance rewards doubled. Players Qin-Chi, Angel Su and Zhaonanchuangbei are asked to confirm whether to notify all players in this round of dungeons. The dungeon notice will be accompanied by the game nicknames of the 3 players. The fat man was very confused. When had he completed any hidden mission? Boss, this. The fat man looked at Sutingyu. After reading the content on the panel, Sutingyu sighed. Who made this game? Just doubled it? So stingy and pretending to be mysterious. It took us less than 20 minutes to complete it. Even if you don't say it directly, it's a bad review. After finishing a lot of fussing, Sutingyu clicked no. The little fairy is not stupid. Choose a Mao announcement dungeon. She doesn't know if any players will thank them for doubling the dungeon rewards, but there are definitely players who will resent them for making the dungeon more difficult. Qin-Chi made the same choice. Seeing this, the fat man quickly clicked no. After the panel disappeared, the fat man scratched his head and thought in hindsight, what did I miss? Sutingyu waved his hand, go and get some food. Let's have a meal in the living room tonight. Oh. The fat man thought of cooking, and turned around and entered the kitchen. Sutingyu tried to put the flower buds into the inventory, and succeeded this time. Props, ravaged flower buds. Grade, bronze. Function, originally a noble and unattainable legendary flower, it can absorb the lifespan of living people and protect the soil and water, but it has become the food of some non-human beings. If you eat too much, you have a chance of improving the level, and the taste is very chewy. Can copies be brought out? Yes. Durability, 45%, damaged, less than 50%, there is a certain probability of damage and can be repaired, less than 20%, the prop is completely damaged and cannot be repaired. Remarks, this is a flower without a rhizome. It makes the listener sad and the listener shed tears. This thing is not for people to eat. It seems that if you eat too much, Dewey can improve his level. When Sutingyu saw that he could bring out a copy, his eyes lit up. There seems to be a large area of cow in the mountains. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 57. Copy on the 5th day. Sutingyu and Fatty went out to buy a car full of supplies for 3 people for 10 days. Who told the length of this game to be increased? The supplies in the villa are enough to last for 20 days, but 27 days is a bit too long, so I have to buy more. Qin-Chi didn't go out because the decoration team he was looking for came to the door early in the morning and wanted to leave someone at home. The latest temperature in the weather forecast has reached 44 degrees Celsius, which is almost as fast as cooking people. Many supermarkets have sold out of water and cold drinks. Sutingyu and Fatty can only drive to a larger supermarket further away to buy them. After the two of them came back from spending a day outside, there was no sign of any damage to the villa. In one day, the damaged areas were repaired and the doors and windows were reinforced. The efficiency is extremely high. Don't ask why, just ask that the money given is too good. As for the reason why Qin-Chi looks like he is not short of money, it is because of his identity as a second-generation ancestor whose parents sacrificed to heaven and inherited hundreds of billions of inheritance and then ate and waited to die. At this point, Sutingyu would never admit that she was sour. Copy Day 6. There is nothing missing in the villa, and there is no need to go out and suffer. Today's temperature has reached 47 degrees Celsius. In addition, the winter clothes and other supplies that Fatty purchased online arrived, so Sutingyu sat at home and happily opened the express delivery. The TV in the living room was on, and Qin-Chi turned to the Beiwa City news station. Recently, many supermarkets and shopping malls have been robbed by several waves of unknown persons. The largest flower shop in Beiwa City announced that it would suspend operations at 10 o'clock this morning. Experts predict that Beiwa City has vigorously developed tourism in recent years, and high-rise factories have built up, which has destroyed the city's climate environment. After Sutingyu finished unpacking the express delivery, she returned to her room carrying her own winter coat and other thermal insulation supplies. In the evening, the three of them went back to their rooms. After Sutingyu took a shower, she turned on the air conditioner in the room as usual and adjusted it to 13 degrees. She wore cool short-sleeved shorts and went to bed. After midnight, the seventh day of the copy came. While countless people were sleeping, the hot weather that had been tormenting them for many days began to cool down. In just 10 minutes, it dropped from 47 degrees Celsius to 17 degrees Celsius. Sutingyu suddenly felt a chill on his arm. He opened his eyes and turned on the bedside lamp. The temperature on the thermometer suddenly turned to 11 degrees Celsius. Sutingyu's eyes widened, and the thermometer moved under her nose again. 10 degrees C, 9 degrees C, 8 degrees C. Sutingyu jumped out of bed and put on the warm clothes and pants as quickly as possible. 5 degrees C, 4 degrees C, 3 degrees C. Gloves. Where are the gloves? Socks. Socks. 3 degrees C, -4 degrees C, -5 degrees C. Sutingyu hurriedly put on clothes, shoes, hat, gloves, earmuffs, and even a mask. Shivering, he moved to the door, opened it, and came face to face with a soft wall of flesh, which was still warm. Qin-Chi, who was also wearing a bloated winter coat, straightened Sutingyu, who was about to collapse. He looked up and down and made sure that the latter was wearing warm clothes before letting go. Qin-Chi, give me a hug. Sutingyu was like a round octopus, grabbing Qin-Chi and rubbing his head inside, causing heat from the friction. Qin-Chi froze slightly. It's too cold, it's too cold. Sutingyu's body was still trembling, but she felt much better. Go find the fat man after a while, Qin-Chi reminded him. Yes. Fatty, Sutingyu suddenly thought of the poor Fatty. Big boss. A trembling voice came from the stairs, and a ball-shaped object with no visible arms and legs rolled towards the two of them. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 58. In the basement, Qin-Chi turned on all the heating equipment. Slowly, after half an hour, the cold in the small space subsided and the temperature rose. Sutingyu and Fatty finally stopped shaking. In a basement full of supplies, the three of them stayed in the middle. On the floor with mattresses, there were electric blankets all around. Electronic ovens were placed in 4 directions, generating heat continuously. Sutingyu's eyes were spinning. It's freezing at midnight. I don't know how many people will be killed tonight. The weather in Baywa City has been getting hotter in the past 6 days. Some players may have realized the dungeon's routine and prepared winter clothes in advance, but the NPCs in Baywa City. Fatty said, unable to continue. Qin-Chi listened to the 2 people's words quietly and said, wait until daytime and then go out to see the situation. Okay, Fatty replied. Sutingyu fell on the mattress and rolled around. Qin-Chi lowered his eyes and said, sleepy? You can sleep a little longer. I'll keep watch tonight. Sutingyu rubbed her sleepy eyes and woke up in the middle of the night. Although she was almost stunned by the cold, she couldn't help but want to sleep now that it was warm. Well, then I'll take a nap. If you're sleepy, call me, I'll stay here for the rest of the night. Sutingyu said in a daze, getting quieter and softer as she spoke. She grabbed the quilt with her little hands and found a comfortable angle. Close your eyes. Qin-Chi looked at the fat man who was not in good spirits. You should sleep too. Brother Qin, remember to call me in the middle of the night, the fat man said softly. In the second half of the night, Sutingyu and Fatty slept more soundly than the other, and Qin-Chi didn't wake anyone up. Wake up naturally. Sutingyu opened her eyes and found that Qin-Chi and Fatty were gone. She picked up the phone next to her and checked the time. It was already 9 o'clock in the morning. Sutingyu slowly moved out of bed, put on her shoes, and walked out of the basement. In the renovated restaurant on the first floor, Fatty arranged the breakfasts one by one. When he saw Sutingyu coming out, he greeted with a smile, "Boss, you're awake, breakfast is ready." Sutingyu found a seat and sat down, looking around. Where is Qin-Chi? Brother Qin is out. The fat man filled an empty bowl with soy milk and placed it in front of Sutingyu. Sutingyu took a few sips, and then there was movement at the door. Qin-Chi was back. After Qin-Chi sat down, he said, "It's snowing outside." "Snowing," they both exclaimed at the same time. Qin-Chi opened the laptop on the table, tapped the keyboard with her fingertips a few times, and turned around the screen. This is the official forum of Baywa City. Sutingyu and Fatty looked at the forum on the screen, and posts were refreshing like crazy. What the hell is the weather? The temperature suddenly dropped. I was scared to death last night. I thought the thermometer was malfunctioning. My grandma froze to death last night. I live in a community and heard several families crying and howling in the morning. When I went out to inquire, I found that several elderly people did not make it through last night. Whoever has extra winter clothes, I'll buy them for 1,000 yuan. Please give me a quilt. My baby is less than 6 months old and the shopping malls and supermarkets are closed. The fat man looked dull and couldn't believe it. Someone really froze to death last night. Sutingyu's expression was not relaxed. He took a sip of warm soy milk and said, "Even adults had a hard time dealing with it last night, let alone some old people and babies who lack the ability to take care of themselves. Babies won't ask for help, and some old people living alone. I'm afraid no one heard me even if I asked for help." After listening, the fat man fell silent. And this is just the beginning. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 59. Sutingyu was lying on the sofa, holding a bowl of hot glutinous rice balls. He picked up one of the glutinous rice balls with his fork and took a bite. "Suck it." While eating, I looked up and admired the snowy scenery outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. It is now the 10th day of the dungeon, and the snow outside has not stopped for a moment. The streets are already covered with half a meter of snow, and some fragile flowers and plants are crushed to death under the snow. Yesterday, Sutingyu and the other 3 tried to drive out to inquire about the situation. The bodies of some stray cats and dogs that had frozen to death appeared on the roadside. After Sutingyu finished eating the glutinous rice balls, he put the empty bowl on the coffee table, took out his cell phone, and went to Baywa City's forum. Many people are complaining about when the snow will stop. There is too much snow on the roads, making it difficult for vehicles to drive, and transportation such as trains and planes are temporarily unable to operate due to this unusually snowy day. Some tourists who originally came to visit have complained on the forum, and some radicals have cursed Baywa Market for its false propaganda. The language has become more and more vulgar, which has aroused the anger of many local residents. An official government post was suddenly pinned to the top by the management, with the general purpose of calming the panic of the people, indicating that personnel would be dispatched to clear the snow on the streets and restore traffic today, and some supermarkets, shops, and wet markets were also reopened under the government's call. Because of the appearance of this post, the chaos on the forum has been curbed. Not only on the forum, but also on TV news, tape recorders, and even community radio, they were all playing this message in a loop. Some people who are short of food at home feel happy from the sky, taking advantage of the highest temperature at noon and the least amount of snow. One after another, people walked out of their closed homes, wearing thick clothes. Even those who didn't have winter clothes put on more than a dozen long-sleeved clothes and jackets. If they didn't have enough, they would wrap themselves in another layer of sheets. As long as you put on a raincoat outside, you won't notice the embarrassment of not wearing thick clothes. On the streets, people responsible for clearing snow and snow plows gradually arrived. Although the prices in supermarkets have increased, no one cares about money anymore. They go to the supermarket to search frantically, and then wait in a long line to check out. At the entrance of a supermarket, a man struggled to squeeze through the crowd, holding a lot of food in large and small bags in his hands. As the man walked, he thought about his wife and daughter who were waiting at home. His face was stiff with cold and could not help but reveal a gentle smile. Bang! Hailstones the size of eggs fell from the sky and smashed through the man's brain without warning. White brains mixed with blood splashed all over the ground, and a corpse lay across the cold road. Ah! Dead people. Some people witnessed this unexpected and bloody scene and screamed. Bang! 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 As if it was the beginning of some kind of fuse, pieces of hailstones the size of eggs dropped sharply from high altitude, like dumplings. With the help of gravity, their power increased dramatically. They easily smashed steel and concrete, and dented the roof of a car. There was no cover above their heads, and people walking on the street were in a panic, screaming constantly, and from time to time there were sounds of opening ladles. The emotions of panic, fear, and death are spreading at a crazy speed like a plague. People who were lucky enough to escape huddled in buildings and prayed silently for the hail to stop. 10 minutes. 30 minutes. 1 hour. 2 hours. 5 hours. As dusk approached, the hail gradually subsided, and all those who had left home took this opportunity to run home as fast as they could in their lives. As darkness fell, the once prosperous city fell into a dead silence. The cold wind howled, like a devil from hell whispering coldly in the ears of the world. I don't know how long it took, but a subtle and suppressed cry came from the cold building. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 60. It was almost dawn, and Sutingyu, who had not slept for an hour all night, rubbed his eyes sleepily. That night, the three of them hid in the basement. During this period, 4 waves of hail rained intermittently. Originally, they were just egg-sized hail. Each wave became bigger and more violent. In the last wave of hail, the size of the hail had matured. The volume of watermelon. Sutingyu went up to the top floor of the villa and found that the rooftop had been smashed into spider web-like cracks. Some of the windows on the 5th floor were smashed, and the cold wind swept in with rain and snow. After one night, most of the furniture and floor tiles were destroyed, and it was a mess, as if the house had been looted and smashed by robbers. The fat man on the 4th floor was not spared when he saw that the room where he originally slept was not spared. The window glass was smashed, and there were many pieces of hailstones on the bed and the ground, which were as big as fists. He couldn't help but feel a little scared. Fortunately, I entered the basement early last night. The fat man didn't come here to clean up. It's only the 11th day, and hailstones the size of watermelons have appeared. Who knows what will happen in the next 16 days. There was no time to repair the villa, so the unsafe floors had to be abandoned. Fatty just came to pick up some surviving clothes for replacement in the next 10 days. The suitcase was also smashed. The fat man took out an extra-large supermarket shopping bag that he had brought with him beforehand and stuffed clothes into it. After stuffing it, the fat man carried it on his back and walked toward the stairs. Sutingyu, who happened to go up to the 5th floor to check on the situation, came down and said, "Fat man, have you packed everything?" Okay, the fat man was carrying a large bag of clothes, which was not very heavy. "What's going on the 5th floor and the top?" Sutingyu blinked her big eyes. A few windows on the 5th floor were also smashed, and there were cracks in the ceiling. This. The fat man was shocked. "Go down first." Okay, okay. The 2nd and 3rd floors where Qin-Chi and Sutingyu live are still intact for the time being, but for safety reasons, they have packed their luggage and will live directly in the basement starting today. 1st floor, restaurant. The generator roared loudly and began to power up. Fatty and Sutingyu sat at the dining table. Breakfast was egg porridge, milk, and bread. The milk and bread were ready-made, and the egg porridge was cooked by gas. Qin-Chi came in from the door, covered in wind and snow. "Take off the outermost raincoat, shake off the snow on it, and close the door." Qin-Chi's first words after sitting down. The electrical boxes and wires in the community were smashed. The situation in the city should be similar. Yunjian community is some distance away from the city center. Now the road is blocked by heavy snow, making it difficult for vehicles to travel. Walking is more time-consuming, and hailstones that come erratically are a potential hazard. Fortunately, the supplies in the villa are sufficient, and the three of them are not panicking. As long as the entire villa does not collapse. Although no one lives on the 4th and 5th floors, we can repair the holes above if we can, Sutingyu said while drinking warm egg porridge. During the day, they were active on the 1st floor. The air in the entire villa was flowing, and the cold air coming in from the 4th and 5th floors would affect the 1st floor. "Fatty, this is easy to handle. I will dismantle the furniture on the 4th and 5th floors in a while and get some wooden boards to nail the gaps. Qin-Chi, I'll reinforce the doors and windows on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors." When Sutingyu heard that they had all been assigned, he tilted his head in confusion. "Then what should I do?" Sutingyu is a mentally retarded person. In the real world, housekeeping ants come to clean housework every week. She either eats out or orders takeout for 3 meals a day. She has never been in the kitchen and can't even drive a car. Apart from occasionally peeling fruit for herself and scratching her hand, getting takeout, throwing away garbage, hanging clothes to dry, she seems to know nothing. "Boss, just sit down," the fat man said with a smile. Sutingyu blinked her big eyes, looked at the fat man, and then looked at Qin-Chi. "Is it really good?" Qin-Chi nodded. Seeing this, Sutingyu felt happy. Today is another little fairy duck who doesn't eat fireworks from the world. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 61. Fake. It is impossible to do nothing. The little fairy is not so thick-skinned. Even though he didn't know how to do anything, Sutingyu followed Qin-Chi to help carry things and hand them over. Today is another hard-working little fairy. Correct. Copy Day 12. During the night, the hailstorm returned, lasting longer and more violently. Large holes were dug into the walls of some buildings, and wind and snow poured in. The indoor temperature dropped sharply, and some unlucky ones were smashed into pieces by the flying hail. The 13th day of the copy. No one dared to sleep at night, they were trembling and nervous. The hailstorm arrived as promised, and its intensity increased dramatically. The tire-like hailstones fell from thousands of miles above the sky, like doomsday meteorites. The residences made of steel and concrete were like fragile tofu blocks, which collapsed and shattered with just a light touch. The collapsed building crushed many people to death, but no one dared to run out. The hail was still falling outside. The 14th day of the copy. More and more people are finding places such as underground floors and basements of large shopping malls that had no presence in the past and hiding there when hailstorms hit at night. Copy Day 15. It rained and hailed all night. During the day, the sun rises. One by one, figures crawled out of the buildings riddled with holes. The numb and frightened faces were so cold that they could no longer even make a sound. In the ruins, a little girl knelt on the ground, pulling heavy gravel with her hands, blood seeping from her fingertips, and she was howling, "Mom, Mom." At the bottom of the gravel, a human hand stained with blood could be vaguely seen, but it was lifeless. A pair of hands hugged the little girl from behind. It was a male policeman wearing a police uniform. "Be good, don't cry, and follow Uncle." Under natural disasters, human power appears weak and pitiful. The Baywa city government is powerless and can only try to stop losses and stabilize social order after the disaster. The hailstorm will stop for a few hours in the morning, and government forces are mobilized to try to save the surviving citizens. "I want Mommy, Mommy." The little girl was still crying. The male policeman hugged the person and lowered his head to comfort the little girl. "Be good, Uncle will take you to a safe place." Suddenly a strong gust of wind blew off the male police officer's hat. He had no choice but to put the little girl down and turn to pick up the hat. The little girl stared blankly ahead. Some people looked frightened and stumbled back, shouting, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Run away! Run away quickly! Hoo hoo hoo!" A fierce strong wind hit, and the layers of snow on the ground were lifted up by the strong wind, rising, forming a terrifying storm with a height of several hundred meters. The male policeman who picked up the hat finally saw this horrifying scene. He didn't care about anything at the moment, picked up the little girl and ran away. The tornado swept all the way, and the half-collapsed building was finally destroyed. The terrifying wind drove up hail and gravel, vehicles parked on the roadside, and bare tree trunks or telephone poles. More than just a tornado. Almost at the same time, 4 tornadoes swept through the city from the southeast, northwest, and 4 directions of Baywa City. People's screams, cries for help, and sounds of pain, were covered up by the huge sound of wind, and some people were blown high by the tornado. At high altitudes that are out of control. The eyeball was hit by gravel. His body was crushed between 2 useless cars. He was hit head-on by a telephone pole and pierced his brain. Torn apart by the tremendous pressure at the center of the storm. The scattered pieces of flesh and blood mixed with the pure white snow, gradually dyed red, solidified into ice, and then were covered by the wind and snow. Those who are still alive are crying and running away.